Oh, let me address you, Pastor Paula White. I'm going to take you to 1 Samuel 10, verse 17, when Samuel called the people and said, this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. I brought Israel up out of Egypt. I delivered you from the power of Egypt and all the kingdoms that oppressed you. But you have now rejected your God who saves you out of all your disasters and calamities. And you have said, no, appoint a king over us. So now present yourselves before the Lord by your tribes and clans. See, that's when the prophet Samuel then anointed Saul, because the people wanted a king. Here's what we know, Pastor Paula White. The people of America rejected God. They rejected a godly man. You have the audacity to say, how can anybody withstand what Donald Trump has gone through? How about 8 years what President Barack Obama went through, when the same person who you praise questioned his Christianity, questioned his faith, dared present the birther movement as somehow he was not a full American? That was an outright lie, but you stood with that man, the same man who said he grabbed women by the vagina, the same man who said he will force himself upon women to kiss them when he wants to, the same man who chastised Senator John McCain, who was a POW, the same man who chastised Mexicans, calling them rapists and calling them criminals, the same man who is not shown at all how to act like, sound like, or be a Christian. Oh, how dare you say that, when the same man you praise and say to pray for said he has seen no reason in his life where he should somehow ask for forgiveness, when we know doggone well the moment of being a Christian is when you have to ask for forgiveness. You have to ask for grace. See, it was Dietrich Bonhoeffer, the German theologian, Pastor Paula White, who called this cheap grace. As when people commit sin, ask for God's forgiveness, and then go out and do it again. Here's the reality, Pastor Paula White. We are going to pray for this president, because we have evil in the White House. We have somebody who wants to attack people of color, somebody who wants to attack the poor, somebody who wants to attack Muslims, who wants to break up families. You dare say nobody else has come under this kind of attack? Oh, please explain to me why so many conservative white evangelicals like yourself have been quiet. Tell me why y'all excuse his comments about Charlottesville, where he essentially aligned himself with neo-Nazis and white supremacists. You pastor a church in Orlando, Florida, that Zachary Timms used to pastor, but before he died, that's largely an African-American church. I want you to stand in front of them and tell them why in the world they must stand in support with Donald Trump when he is trying to take away their right to vote, when he has a sham voter fraud panel. You tell me how that is Christian. You tell me what is Christian about trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, where people who are sick or disenfranchised will be thrown off and not have health care. Please show me in your Bible where that's somehow a Christian principle. I dare say this, Pastor Paula White, you are supposed to be a prophet. Prophet, not profit. God calls for the prophetic to stand up, yes, to question people in power, yes, to challenge them. Because let me remind you, it was the prophet Samuel, yes, who went to Saul and told him he was doing wrong, who said that you have went against the commandments of God. Let me remind you, Pastor Paula White, it was the prophet Nathan who went to David and said, you sinned against God by laying with Bathsheba. What we need, Pastor Paula White, are not people who wave their Bible trying to get conservative Supreme Court justices. What we need are people who are going to actually follow that Bible. I suggest you call Reverend Dr. William Barber to have a conversation about what it means to actually be a prophetic voice in the 21st century. I suggest you go read Dr. King's letter from a Birmingham jail, where he was talking to folks just like you who were saying black folks are pushing too much. And I dare say you use a prophetic voice to look Donald Trump in the eye and say it's time for you to stop acting like a grown child and to act like a man, to respect the office of the presidency. What I expect, Pastor Paula White, somebody who has been raised up, who has been built up by virtue of talking and preaching in black churches, to have an understanding of what black folks are going through. So you want us to pray for the president? Oh, we're going to pray for the president. We're going to pray for the country, because the country asked for a king. The country turned their back on God. And now God said, I'm going to give you the desires of your heart, which always ain't good. Pastor Paula White, we got a word for you, and that is, be a prophetic voice and don't just be a profitable voice.